Hello everyone. We had a few issues with the mute button. Good morning everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend an hour focusing on that all-important issue of analytics, online analytics. I'm here in the Creative New Zealand Auckland office with Helen and Sabrina. So it's great to see so many of you here, especially in a short week, so appreciate that. Okay. As always, the webinar is just under an hour long, and what we're going to cover today, just a little bit of an introduction about what online analytics can do for us. And then I'm going to share with you 10 different audience insights you can get from your online analytics. And then we'll do a bit of I'll give you a few tips on reporting on your online audiences and a couple of tips around custom reporting. And then we'll have, as Helen mentioned, questions in the middle, if you've got any at that point, and then questions and wrap up at the end. So wouldn't it be great when people asked us this question, that rather than feeling like this, we were able to answer confidently and have the answer roll off our tongue like this. Online analytics offer us a really big opportunity to streamline, optimize, and improve the results of our online marketing activity. So ask yourself, when was the last time you adapted some aspect of your marketing approach as a result of the information you gleaned from analytics? Some of you will be doing this, but many New Zealand arts organisations aren't really doing this. We get too busy, we get too swamped, and we don't quite know how to interpret the analytics. Yet we do have the ability to do so every day because we have free access to most of these types of tools. You'll recognise some of these. There is a vast range of analytics now available to us, and many such as these ones are free. So most of us would have access to at least 3 of these types of tools. So they include Google Analytics, which is a free application which you can integrate with your website, and hopefully most of you now, through some of our efforts over the last year or so, most of you are now using Google Analytics. It does require a developer to put it into your web pages, as it's JavaScript that goes onto the pages, but once you've got it, it's yours for free. Everyone who has a Facebook page has access to Facebook Insights, and everyone who has a YouTube channel has access to YouTube Insights. And if you're using an email management system, such as SmartMail or MailChimp, you are going to have access to the email management system reporting. So we have this wealth of data at our fingertips. What can these analytics tell us about our audience? So they're not perfect. They're not the answer to all our problems. They don't necessarily tell us the individual behaviour of each audience member, but what they can do is give us extensive insights into our audience segments and developing trends amongst our online audience. So if we wanted to build a picture of who our online audience's visitors are and how they're engaging with us online, here are some of the key areas that we can focus in on. Obviously, the size of our online community, the extent of it and its potential reach, the demographics of our online audience, a little bit about who they are, the technology and devices that they're using, how they arrived at our online channels and what they're seeking from us. They can also tell us what content they consume and how engaged they are with us, how they move between our online channels, what times they connect with us online, and how frequently they connect with us online. So that's quite a lot of information about our online audience if we were able to have it roll off our tongues. So thinking about online analytics in this way, so thinking about meaningful insights that they can give into your audience, so it helps you to focus on the data that's important. So today I'm going to share with you a selection of the reports that provide me some of these insights when I'm working with arts organisations. Now, I've deliberately focused on the reports that are freely available to you without advanced levels of knowledge and lots of available time to spend hours and hours each day doing analytics. Very few of us are analytics experts, but what I'm focusing in on here are things that you know, in a couple of days you could sit down at your desk and actually go into these reports and actually get some really great information about your audiences. So trying to be ever practical here. You'll notice that these are also, in a way, questions. So when Helen talked about asking questions of the data, that's one of the biggest struggles that arts organisations have, is you go into the Google Analytics reports and you get kind of lost in there, right? So if you actually think about what you're trying to find out, and in my case it was, what can online analytics tell us about our audience, and then these different 10 points, it makes it a lot easier to kind of hone in on the right reports. So starting with these ones that I'm going to show you today and learning how to interpret them will give you confidence and increase your curiosity, I hope. Then we can talk about an advanced analytics webinar later on. The rewards of being able to report on and speak confidently about your audiences and communities you connect with is well worth the effort. And as I'll come to at the end, you can use these reports that I'm showing you today as the basis of your internal reporting and a backbone of a digital audit for those of you who are in the process of writing and preparing a digital marketing strategy. So my goal is, as I said, that you could sit down at your desk next week, run these reports and create a benchmark report on your online community that you can then refresh every month, every quarter, whatever, to see what progress you're making. A few nuggets will pop up during the webinar from the Optimiser Online Marketing Benchmarking pilot, which 39 organisations from the New Zealand arts sector are signed up for, and some of you are here today. The goal of this project is to utilise the available online analytics across the sector to ascertain trends and set some starter benchmarks, and results of this are coming out middle of this year. So without further ado, let's take you through some of these reports. So a lot of these reports I'm going to show you at a high level. I'm really trying to show you what's possible and what's available. I've labelled each of the reports, so later on when the webinar slideshow gets added to Creative New Zealand's website, you can go back and go through the reports and start to explore them in your own time. So don't feel panicked if you can't possibly absorb all this in the next 40 minutes, so don't worry about that. So here we go, folks. So obviously we can ascertain the size of our online community from analytics. This is not any sort of rocket science, and you'll be doing this already. So you can go into your YouTube Insights and see how many views you're getting and how many subscribers you have. You can go into your Google Analytics and look at the audience overview report to see the number of visits and unique visitors. And while we're here on this report, I'm going to just clarify the difference between visits and unique visitors. So the visits is the number of times someone visited, and the unique visitors is the number of people who made those visits. So obviously, unique visitors is always lower than visits because some people are making multiple visits. If any of you are still talking about hits on your website, you need to stop right now. A hit really records the download of a file on your website or an image file. So if your web page has 6 image files on it, you're going to be done, it's going to be 6 hits, and it means nothing. What you should be talking about is visits and unique visitors. Okay, so and you can segment Google Analytics reports by any sort of date range that you choose, obviously. So you're going to be looking at different time scales depending on your needs. Again, Facebook Insights gives you some great stats on the size of your, not just your followings, but the friends of your fans, so the potential reach of your messaging and your weekly total reach. So it gives you quite a lot of insight into the potential reach that you have through your online community. If you have a social media dashboard tool, I use Sprout Social. You have to pay for that, but that's good if you're managing multiple accounts. Hootsuite is another one, TweetDeck, any of those sort of dashboards, they're going to give you reporting as well, and that's really great for Twitter reporting. So just here's a couple of insights coming out from the Optimiser program. So, and you can compare yourself to these. So website monthly unique visitors over the last 6 months have ranged from 119 to 70,000 in the arts sector. So there's a huge range of size of organisations. So the overall average, which in a way is meaningless, we'll be segmenting as part of the benchmarking, is just over 5,000, and the median is 2,000. And we've got some stats as well on the Facebook communities. They're ranging from 318 up to 22,000, with the average being 2,638. So you can map how you're doing against that. Okay, so The second area that we can find out about is obviously the demographics of our online audience. So there's a few handy reports and can really give you a sense of how your online audience differs across each of your segments. So starting with YouTube Insights. So there is a demographics report in YouTube Insights which tells you age groups and gender. And you can kind of see what your most prominent segments are on YouTube. It's interesting, I'll often find that the YouTube audience can even be older than the Facebook audience, so you can get quite a few differences amongst channels. So Facebook Insights, obviously under the likes report, tells you geography down to sort of city level and gender and age. I think we all know that. The Google Analytics Audience Location Report is useful to see where your web visitors are coming from, and it does it in a visual graph form, a map form, and then you can drill down into the different areas of the maps down to city level. So that can be really useful. That can be a useful report if you're doing even funding applications and things for, from different regions and things like that. You can prove that your web visitors come from beyond the city that you're in. There's some interesting free tools around if you want to see where your Twitter followers are coming from. So this is mapmyfollowers.com. I popped in my Twitter handle and it's showing me on map form where Twitter followers are coming from because of the content that I post on my feed. I'm not necessarily New Zealand focused, which is why I've got a lot of North American followers, but everyone's going to have a different thing. So that's quite a useful visual tool. These are great to put in reports and funding applications as well. And if you're using an email management system such as MailChimp, you can look at the opens of your email by location, and that can also give you some insights. So again, it is really interesting to look at how these demographics differ across your channels, and that is going to help you to tailor what you use the channels for and what you deliver to people, information and content that you deliver, and tone of voice too. So I thought you might like to know that females aged 25 to 34 are the most common segment across the Optimiser participants' Facebook pages. So we've got a lot of females of that age group in the art sector following our Facebook pages. And there's a few differences depending on type of organisation obviously, but this was the most common by far. So understanding the technology and devices that they use is really important, particularly as we all know there's been a lot of talk at the workshops and webinars about the growth of mobile and how we have to adapt to that. So this can really help you understand and also create great evidence for you in business cases around this. So Google Analytics has, under the audience reports, has mobile reporting. So it gives you a mobile overview report which shows of your total visits over any particular time period you select, which percentage the yes in those rows down the bottom of the table. The yes means that they came via mobile, including tablets, and the no means they didn't. They came through desktop, computer or laptop. So that actually looking at how that changes over time is really important to show the growth of your mobile visitors and to keep an eye on that. Another great insight from this is if you look across the row, across the columns, you can see some of the engagement stats such as the bounce rate. So the bounce rate is the number of people who come to one page and then jump off and don't go any further. On the whole, I'm seeing bounce rates higher, sometimes significantly higher from mobile than they are from desktops and laptops. So that's a strong indicator that you're not mobile optimized and people are having trouble on the site and not having a good experience. So watching this, and especially if you are developing a mobile site or a mobile optimized site, to actually keep an eye on how this changes over time as well. And again, this can be great evidence for you to claim that funding is required and investment is required. So that's a great report. And then you can go down and actually see what devices, this is comparing mobile to past. So you just, in Google Analytics, you can compare to past, and there's an easy default one which is a year ago, and then there's the previous period. So if you're looking at 3 months, you can look at the previous 3 months, or you can customize what you're comparing it to. So that's really useful to view the changes over time. And Google Analytics also will tell you specifically which devices people are using, which is really great. And that little picture there is great. You can actually click and see what the device looks like, which can be quite helpful if you don't know what a Samsung CT blah blah Galaxy looks like. But yeah, so you can really get a sense of how engaged people are and what they're doing on your site from the different devices. Each device can be a segment for you. If you go into YouTube Insights, the playback locations report, you can see where people are playing or on what devices people are playing your video. So whether they're actually on the watch page on YouTube, or in this case, you'll see that the second most popular one was mobile devices. So that's another little clue into how your users are using mobile, how they're engaging with your content via mobile and how that's changing over time. Again, Facebook Insights has a where your likes came from report, and as you'll see the like sources, you can see how many liked you from a mobile device. Again, an important point here really is to look at trends over time and compare yourself to others where you can. It's those comparisons that kind of show, how you're going. So, we're seeing mobile visits as a percentage of total visits continuing to rise. So over the last 6 months, mobile visits rose on average 4.4% across Optimiser participants, and the average percentage of mobile visits is now 15.5% compared with 11.45% 6 months ago. So it's really, really growing fast. So if you're thinking about that mobile optimized site, you need to do it now. Okay, so what online analytics can tell us is also how people came to be on our online channels. It's really important that we understand this, because this is all to do with investment of marketing spend and also resource, what we're focusing on, where we're putting our efforts in terms of promoting what we do on other sites, how much we do with search engine optimization and things like that. So understanding how they came to actually be on your channels is important. And you can get those insights from traffic sources reports. So YouTube Insights is a great traffic sources report. It's really interesting looking at this channel here. The number one is YouTube search, and you will have all heard of the various webinars in Ray Bassett's last time about how YouTube is, such a big search engine. So many people are searching in YouTube. So that's why all that stuff she was saying about optimizing your channel and putting in the right keywords is so important. But anyway, this can give you a really good sense of where your YouTube people have come from. Google Analytics has a section on traffic sources. It's one of my favorite sections of their reports. The overview shows you the balance between the main traffic sources. So for those of you who don't know, direct traffic, which is the red segment here, is people who came straight to your website, not from another online source. So they either typed the URL in their browser or they had you in their bookmarks, for example. Referral traffic is sites, other websites or other applications that are not search engines, and search traffic is search such as Google, Bing, etc. So the balance of your referral traffic and search traffic, what balance you want that to be depends a lot on what you're doing and who you are. But if you've got a really low percentage, for example, of referral traffic, that's indicating that you've got an opportunity to get more links on other sites. But anyway, this is all about audiences, so this is where they've come from. And the traffic sources report, this is great for actually seeing not only where they came from. I've blanked out where the reports kind of reveal something about the organisation. I've blanked them out here. So, but under that source column in the table, you would normally have the names of the sites. And what's interesting with this one is that you can then see how engaged each of those traffic sources were. So think of those as individual audience segments coming from different sources, and then look at how they're engaging with your site. And you can go into custom reporting to really get into that in a big way. Facebook Insights has a where your likes came from report, which is really useful. So where they actually clicked on the like button. Make sure you're checking that out. And yeah, so when they arrive at your site, so you know where they come from, what are they seeking from you? And there's some great insights here. So keyword reporting in Google Analytics is really insightful. So what this report does, and again I've blanked out some of the keywords, that's why it's a bit muddy there, but what this tells you is of all your traffic during the time period that you select, what people were searching on to get to you. So this is incredibly insightful in terms of what your audiences are looking for from you and what questions they've asked that you've come up as the answer to in search engine results. And you can be quite surprised sometimes about what people searched on and how they somehow came to find you. This is great for understanding, once you understand what your audiences want and you keep an eye on this over time, you can start to adapt the structure and content of your website to deliver better to their needs and to their requirements. You can also see that if they search on something and they land on your page, if there's a really high bounce rate from a particular page, it means that they didn't get what they were seeking and maybe you missed an opportunity to actually answer their questions. So really useful report in terms of content and structure of your website. What I did here is I sorted that keywords by bounce rate to see, I think I sorted it by bounce rate, maybe I didn't. But anyway, I wanted to just say a little tip here is that there's an advanced filter function on each of the reports, and you can filter out things that are kind of skewing the report. So in this case, I wanted to filter out any visits that were less than 100. So if a keyword sent one visit, for example, it could really skew the results. So just be aware, you can play around with that you can exclude or include certain things through that filter in your report and customize your report a bit further. The landing page report is also interesting, particularly if you customize a report that kind of cross-references keywords with landing page. But this is a standard report in Google Analytics where you can actually see what page they came in on, and that can give you a sense of what people are looking for on your site when they come from search, well, any source really. This is fascinating. YouTube Insights has under traffic sources, you can go into the YouTube search report. And so you drill down into the people who came from YouTube search, you drill down into it, and then you can see what they actually searched on to get there. And this is the New Zealand String Quartet's YouTube channel. They've generously allowed us to share these. So it's really interesting looking at this, not only how, what people were searching on and how they got to your channel, but also how long they stayed. So the average duration over on the right-hand column, you can see if people searched on New Zealand String Quartet, they're obviously getting what they were searching for and were more likely to stay longer and consume the content for longer. But if they were looking for something a little more generic, like string quartet recording, the duration wasn't so long. So you've got to kind of think about segmenting your audiences on YouTube in that way too. Some people are coming just for a quick, glance, and you want to capture them quickly if you can, and others are really specifically searching for you. So that's got a lot of insights in it, that report, and I recommend you have a look at it. So interesting nugget from Optimiser. On average, 51.20% of Optimiser participants' web visitors are not entering their sites via the home page. They're entering via internal pages. They're coming from search. They're coming from links and emails and things. And that has a lot of implications around just getting out of that mindset that people are landing on your home page and taking a structured path. There are infinite numbers of user journeys and audience journeys within your website. So that brings us perfectly on time. Timing is impeccable. Does anyone have any questions at this point? No pressure to have questions. There's a lot to absorb. We can carry on. There's a question time at the end, but I just thought if anyone wanted to ask something specific right now, I'd do my best to answer it.
Vicki, can I ask a question?
Yes.
It's Helen here.
Is it a hard question?
No, it's actually more of a sort of overview question. One of the daunting things is actually how you allocate time to obviously look at your analytics and how much time per week you might spend on this. Do you have any overall kind of guidelines or recommendations for how people might portion up their time to actually look at their analytics and how frequently they should be looking at their analytics reports? I mean, obviously it's going to be individual for individual organisations, but do you have any general advice around this?
Okay, my general advice is this. First of all, think about an interval of time that you want to deliver a more detailed report and go into the analytics and pull the stuff out. It might be every 3 months, it might be every month. And then set, and I'll come to this at the end, but set a template that makes it really easy, almost a checklist of which reports to go in and, you know, what time period you're searching on. So, you know, I had to pull together a lot of screenshots for this webinar. I could go into those reports and within a minute, if I knew what I was looking for, have a report generated. So if you've pre-planned what's going to be in your report, then it just makes it so easy. You know exactly what you're going in to pull out. So there's that. And then I would say, particularly with Google Analytics, set up a dashboard of kind of top-level insights that you get into the habit of, and maybe a checklist of, including the other channels as well, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, whatever else you're looking at, email. Kind of set a checklist of things that you can just glance at each couple of days, because I think the trouble is we get our heads out of it, and then when the board member walks in and says, so who's our online audience? And that's why we had the blank stare, because we're not in it all the time. So I think getting into the habit of just quickly glancing at top level results starts to get us familiar and notice any sort of peaks or, you know, any changes.
Thanks, Vicki. There is a question from Penn. He wants to know, are there any integrated web and social channel reporting tools? Penn is from The Edge.
Yeah, hi Penn. In fact, there are. I mean, there's a lot of tools, but even within Google Analytics, there's now a more advanced social media marketing set of reports. So it would take me quite a long time to describe these reports to you, but they can show you things like, you know, where your social visitors are coming from and what they're doing on the site. You can track your sort of social share links within the site and things like that. To do that, you have to have assistance from your web developer to embed that in your site. So it's sort of an extra step. It's not just in the standard reporting. But I think you'll find even within Google Analytics, there's a lot of stuff that is probably answering what you're asking. I see that there's, yeah, he says Pen. Happy to have a discussion with you about this offline as well, because it's quite a detailed kind of area that we all should be getting into. Celia, thanks for your question, which is what does talking about this on Facebook mean? Yeah, so the talking about this stat on Facebook, it's the number of people, and when it pops up on your page at the top level, it's showing you the last 7 days. So in the last 7 days, it's the number of people who created a story from your page. So it means they either liked a post, commented on a post, liked your page, shared something from your page, responded to an invitation, entered a poll, anything they do that creates a story in their own newsfeed. So, you know, when you do something on someone's page, you click like or whatever, and it pops up in your feed that, you know, Vicki Allpress Hill liked this. That is counted in the talking about this rate. So it's showing how many people are actually doing something with your Facebook content. And how I look at it as a percentage, so, and I'm actually coming to this in the second half, so there'll be a bit more on this, but if you take the talking about this number and then divide it into your total likes as a percentage, that gives you your talking about this rate. Yeah. Okay, so if there's no further questions right now, I might carry on and then we'll have time for questions at the end. Thanks for those. Oh, and Pen's just made a comment, interesting to consider what is the key Facebook metrics, definitely not likes in my view, talking about. Yeah, I'd say talking about this and then looking at the sort of virality post data, which is where you're looking at how individual content is performing. I'll come to a few of those in a moment. Okay. So part 2. So we can also find out what content our audiences are consuming online and how. So some of you will have come to the webinar a couple of months ago about digital content and all the opportunities for creating content and the challenges we all have around what we post, how we create it, what we create, what's going to take with people, what we put our efforts into, having ideas for content, that sort of thing. So understanding a bit about what our online audiences currently consume can really help us in those decisions. So Google Analytics has, the default reporting is listed down the left-hand side. When you've got your Google Analytics account and you open it up, the default reports are down the left-hand side and they're grouped into some main areas, and one of them I mentioned was traffic sources, but another one is content. And this is a great report for showing what content people are viewing. So let's say you looked at the last month, you run the report and it will show you the names of the pages in order of number of page views, and then you can sort it in different ways. This is to show you that you can change the view of a report. You can, if it's appropriate, look at it as a pie graph or as a table or as a chart. So you've got those options within each report to just change the view. When you see number 1 here and you just see the /, that's the home page. So then it shows you in sort of reverse order what was the most popular content on the site, and this may actually bring you some surprises as well when you have a look at it. And it's going to change depending on external activity, like if you've got a season in a theatre going on, obviously the page about that season is going to, at particular times, be higher up the list. But it really does help to see what people are viewing on your site. And then you can go down to page path level 2, which is you can go down a level, so you can, and then you can keep going down depending on the structure and hierarchy of your website. Okay. YouTube Insights has this great views and discovery report under video statistics. So this is when you go into an individual video in your YouTube channel, you'll see a little, under where it's got all the share links and things, you'll see a little graph icon, and that takes you into the insights about that particular video rather than your overall channel. And this can really tell you what people have sort of, how they're consuming these videos, and it tells you the milestones of when things first happened. So when it was first referred from Facebook, and when it was first viewed on a mobile phone, first embedded on a website. You know, it's just really interesting stats to show you what people did with a particular video. So if you listened to Ray Bassett's webinar last month and got really inspired about programming your YouTube channel, this is a great tool to sort of look at what's happening already, and also as you trial different videos, seeing how audiences respond to them. There's a few, you know, sort of things within Facebook Insights as well. So when you go into the page post report where you see what happened with individual posts on your page, you can go in and look at all the different post types and sort of see what happened to that content. So this is great because each post, it gives you the reach, so how many people saw it, potentially, how many users were engaged in talking about this, and the virality stat level, which is, I won't bore you with it now, but when you go into it, you can hover over those question marks and it tells you exactly what that means. But basically, you can sort by virality and talking about this and get a sense of which posts got the most engagement. And then you should do more of the same. We've talked about this before. And then the talking about this that I just, I'm glad you asked that question, Celia, because now I've explained what talking about this means already. But you can actually see how they were talking about this. So, you know, you can get more information about what they were actually doing. So, you know, just play around with these reports, drill down and see what's in there. There's more information sometimes than we think. Now, I'll admit that I'm not a big user of Pinterest at the moment, just because I can't use everything. But we have a webinar coming up soon. Anna Connell, who some of you may know, who's now head of online communities at BNZ and was talked at our digital marketing workshops, is going to do a webinar for us on Pinterest. But what's interesting is Pinterest has just released recently analytics. And I thought this is great because you can do a most repinned report of your content, so which content was repinned by others the most, and then even further go into people who pinned this also pinned. So if you're really like drilling down into your Pinterest channel and trying to make it meaningful, you can start to see, you know, who are these people and what are they interested in? Who are interested in your content? What other things are they interested in? You can get some insights into their behaviour and motivation. So that leads us into understanding how engaged our audiences are, and this is your point, Pen, earlier about likes not being a key Facebook metric. You're absolutely right. Of course, we want to know the size of our community and we want to track its growth, but what's really important is those who are consuming and engaging with our content on social media and through all our channels. So there's a number of reports that give us clues to this. So if you've got an email management system such as MailChimp, you're going to get the most basic metrics are the open rate and the click-through rate. These are really great engagement indicators. The open rate is how many people, the percentage of your list who actually opened the email. And the click rate is how many people clicked on links within the email. So, you know, if your open rate is decreasing over time, you're losing engagement with your audience. It's as simple as that. Open rate is going to be dependent on, you know, your type of email and things like that. Click rate as well is going to depend on how many links are within your email. So you have to take all that into account. But what you're looking at is trends over time and alarming indicators of people losing engagement or encouraging indicators of them increasing engagement, knowing that your content is meaningful to them. Now, it's interesting how many insights we can now get publicly. So I am not an administrator of Sydney Theatre Company's page, but I can get this at the click of a button. So when you go into, as you know, any Facebook page, you'll see in the tabs along the top, one of them will be likes, and when you click on that you can get this information, and it's actually a really good clue into how engaged your competitors or other similar organisations, how engaged their audiences are. So the clues are, again, they're talking about this rate. So I would divide, if I wanted to compare this to me, I would divide 553 into 16162 and get something like 3.4%. And then I would see how that compared to my talking about this rate. One thing I'll say about talking about this is it's a real snapshot in time thing. It is very, very dependent on what's happening externally to your organisation. So if you've got a major festival on this week, well, like Festival of Colour in Wanaka had last week, you're talking about this rate is going to shoot up. If it's like 6 months between your festivals, then you're talking about this rate. The challenge is to keep it up there because it's probably going to go down. So you really have to take those external factors into account. But yeah, you can even see through here, like, where are their engaged audiences, how old are their engaged audiences, and you know, what was the most popular week and things like that. So it's like, you know, some clues into your competitors really, or it's a great positioning tool, how you are positioned amongst others. So use that. Now the Google Analytics Audience Overview Report, you don't even have to go too far into Google Analytics to get a real sense of engagement. So there's a number of stats here that indicate engagement. The first is pages per visit. So if we would go down the first column, pages per visit is how many pages on average people during this time period viewed when they visited your site in a single visit. You want to see that hopefully gradually going up, unless you particularly happen to have a website that's driving people off to a different application. Generally you want people to stay around on your site. You can do more with them when they do. To the right of that is average visit duration, which is kind of related. It's how long they spent on your site. To the right of that is the bounce rate I mentioned earlier. So if you have a really high bounce rate, people staying on one page and then leaving, it could ring alarm bells. In some instances, it could also indicate they're finding exactly what they need on your Contact Us page and not needing to go any further. So it's really good to segment down into the individual pages and see how the bounce rates differ. Percentage new visits at the bottom there is also an indicator. So over that time period, this is the percentage of people who this was the first time they came to your site, based on, of course, the IP address of their computer. So it's based on the JavaScript code that they're viewing. So it's really, someone may have come on a different device, so it's not fully accurate, but it does give you a great indicator. If you're running a particular big campaign where you're trying to reach new audiences, you want your percentage of new visits to be higher than you would normally, perhaps. So again, external factors have to be taken into account. So each of those stats is a really great indicator, and you can very quickly run a comparison to the same time period last year or the previous time period and see if your engagement is increasing or decreasing. And if it's, when you run the report and you get a lot of red indicators, that means that it's decreasing, and green means good. So that's a good top level indicator for you. Google Analytics has a number of audience, they're actually called audience engagement reports. So they have visit duration reports where you can drill down further to see what percentage of your visitors, or how many of your visits were of a certain duration. And again, you can do this with page depth. So how many of your visitors only went to one page, how many went to two, etc. You always get this thing down the bottom where you get a small segment of highly committed people who go to 20+ pages on your website. But obviously you want it to get fatter as it goes down, and that's, you know, the fatter that gets as it goes down, the more engaged your website audiences are. YouTube has audience retention reporting. That's a really interesting thing that's going to come out of the Optimiser project, is seeing how long on average people are watching videos. We're just working on that now. But in this particular instance, you'll see the average view duration was 1 minute 48 on a channel that had some videos that were much longer. So this is a great indicator to see how people are engaging with your video content, whether you have to adapt that content, or again, some people will engage longer and some people will just want snapshots. So maybe sort of thinking about content for each of your segments. So what are we seeing across websites overall? Is an average bounce rate of 50.92%, an average visit duration of just over 2 minutes, and average pages per visit of 2 minutes and 2.74 pages. So you can have a look at your stats and see how you compare to those. So you also get some indicators in your analytics about how people are moving between channels, and as Ken sort of asked earlier, could we look at, you know, really our reporting on a higher level can be incredibly integrated. But if we're just looking at the free tools available to us right now, the sort of default reporting, there's a couple of reports that can indicate these things. So obviously if you look into any of your social channel insights, you get to see external referrers. And in this instance, the external referrers are all search on this particular Facebook page over this particular time period. If you're really trying to be integrated, what you want to see is more people coming to your Facebook page from your other online channels. You can also go into your Google Analytics traffic report and use a filter again. So in this report, it was a standard traffic report, and it showed all the traffic from all the referrers, and then I put the advanced filter on and did include Facebook, and it just pulled out the 2 Facebook referrals, which is the standard Facebook one, and then anyone on Facebook on a mobile. So I can quite quickly produce a report that shows me which of my social channels are sending me visits and then how engaged they are. You can also run this by, if you're running any goals on Google Analytics, which is like email sign-up goals or any other goals, which is a custom reporting thing, you can actually see how your social referrals fared in that regard and how they performed. Now this is great. You can actually find out in Google Analytics when people are connecting with your website. So the most fun report ever is the real-time overview report, where you can go in at a moment in time and see right now how many people are on your site and where they've come from. So if you go onto your site at different times of the day just for fun, or you can do it in a more structured way to be more systematic, you can actually see who's on your site right in real time. So that's a real-time overview report, and that's a default report. So have a play with that. And then you can create custom reporting. So this one was I did a visits by hour custom report to find out what hour of the day, so this is 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 noon, etc., had the most visits on this website. So this is really, really useful to, and you could actually add different dimensions like mobile as well if you got quite high level with your custom reporting, and just see, you know, what time of the day are the mobile visitors coming versus your standard visitors. So all this is there at your fingertips. And that kind of leads me into the last point, which is how frequently they connect with us online. So in a way, this is a loyalty thing and a relationship indicator. So on a basic level, we get the new versus returning report. So you saw in the overview report that you could see what percentage of visits were new. This takes you a step further, and of the new visitors, you know, some of these engagement stats, the visit duration and the bounce rate, and then the returning visitors. So that's a useful one. And then Google Analytics also offer frequency and recency reports. So I ran this frequency and recency report, which shows, this one shows the days since last visit. And then I ran what is called an advanced filter, which I'll just show you about in this last little bit that I'm coming to sort of compare that between returning visits and new visitors. When it says, the way it runs this report, by the way, if you do run this report, 0 means 1 day since the last visit, and 1 means between 1 and 2 days since the last visit. So it's a little bit confusing, but if they came within the last day previously, it shows up in that first one. You're not going to take all this in as I'm talking now. You have to go and have a look at it. But it is a really useful kind of loyalty report. So across all the Optimiser participants, 58.52%. I ran a report between October and March, and so a 6-month period, and 58.52 were new visits. And new visitors range from 39 to 78% during that period. So if you want to kind of compare yourself to the benchmark, this one is an overview, high-level benchmark. So that comes to reporting and what Helen was talking about in the questions earlier. That is the biggest struggle and challenge, is what to report on, how often to report, who to send these reports to. And as I said earlier, I think it really is worth putting the time together to create a template report. I've done this previously when I've actually been in a role in an organisation, created a template report based on the key metrics that the internal stakeholders wanted to know. So that was one way of doing it. I thought that you could even take some of these audience indicators that I've talked about today and create kind of a report that had some of the key metrics based on those in it. I think what's important is that you set up this template and you think it through why you're pulling this data out, and then you systematically, all you have to do each time you run the report is just go in and find that data. You could even get someone relatively junior to go in and pull the data out. You don't have to think too much, and then add your own interpretation to this report. The key is to start tracking these things because they are benchmarks for you, and as you know, if you start looking a month down the track, 3 months down the track, a year down the track, you can see what progress you've made. and where you're improving and where you need to put your efforts, and how your activity is actually impacting on these benchmarks. So that's one way of doing it. And then I would say to utilise dashboards. Now, in Google Analytics, you get a standard dashboard, which is the first report on the left. But now you can create custom dashboards, and you can create up to 20. So this is another great reporting tip. If you've got an organisation where different internal stakeholders or even external stakeholders want different metrics for different purposes, you can actually create some dashboard reports specifically for them and then export these or allow them into the analytics depending if they've got a login, or export it as a PDF for them and give them some high-level metrics on a regular basis. How it works with the dashboard is, so this is a dashboard I've customized for a client recently, and I had thought about what were the key metrics in their particular scenario that they needed to track and would be useful for them to glance in on a daily basis. So what happens is you get the top level metric and you can kind of set the graphs in the way that you want, the view in the way that you want, that makes sense for the report. But then if you click on that report, it takes you into the full report. So it kind of, if you want to drill down further, you can do that. They're called widgets, and you just basically, you can have up to 12 widgets in one report, and you either pull them over and decide what's going to be in it, or you go to a report and then you save it to your dashboard. So it's just great to create a couple of custom dashboards for yourself and play around with these. Another reporting tip is using advanced, this is a customization tip actually, using advanced segments in any report. So if you're looking at some metrics and then you think, I wonder if Auckland people are different to Wellington people in this regard, for example, you can go in and either use their default segments or create a custom segment, apply those segments to the report, and then it will compare between the segments. So that's just a really useful tip. And useful tip number 3 is that there's a customization tab at the top of your Google Analytics reporting, and this is where you can develop custom reporting. So I did show you a custom report I developed earlier. Basically, you call it what you want, and then you get a range of metrics and a range of dimensions. And you can go and have a look in the Google Analytics help section about how that all works. I find custom reporting quite challenging because I can never work out what's a metric and what's a dimension, and then sometimes metrics and dimensions don't go together, so you'll think that you're going to put two things together in a report and then it won't let you. That's normal. There's some great stuff on YouTube about how to set up a custom report. You have to play around with it. You have to play, and sometimes you create reports that are completely nonsensical, but just keep trying and playing around with things. So, yeah, I probably don't really need to recap in great detail. I think in terms of resources, I thought, well, you just Google it really. You just Google any of these things, and there's all sorts of help guides and help sections and videos and things. So whichever one you're interested in, whichever report you're interested in, you can go and drill down further into it. And there's some great, as I mentioned, how-to videos on YouTube. And some of the email management systems, like MailChimp's fantastic with this, has a whole lot of PDF resources and videos and things that you can self-train. One idea is if you're fortunate enough to have multiple people on your team, or a range of people working with you, or you're in some sort of consortium where you've got different organisations working together. I had this bright idea today that you could make this week that you could make each of those people a super user in one of the tools. So you could set them off to go and really learn up about MailChimp reporting, for example, or YouTube Insights, and then have that person responsible for those areas of the reporting. And I'm just reminding you of the Optimiser benchmarking blog, which I should be updating more than I am, and Tim's been fantastic updating it, and I've been not so good, but I will be from now on. So there'll be some stuff coming out on that blog if you want to follow it. So are there any further questions? Okay, yes there are. Delia has asked, hi Delia, any advice on the best email management system or the pros and cons of the top 3 or 4? Well, yeah, MailChimp versus Campaign Monitor, etc. This is probably quite a big question to answer. I have my favourites. My favourites are probably MailChimp, Smart Mail, and Mail 2, which is Mail and then the number 2. But I'm not using all of them all the time. So maybe that's something, let me think about how I could put that question out and see what people are enjoying. I know lots of people are using MailChimp at the moment, but I could have a more detailed conversation offline with you about that, Delia. Are there any other questions about analytics? What I'm really hoping is that you can go off and now explore that further. You can pick out the reports that you think will be useful to you. You can go and have a play and just limit yourself to the reports I've shown you so that you don't get overwhelmed. I think that's a good starting point if you're not doing a lot of this already. There doesn't appear to be any further questions at this point, so I might hand back to you, Helen.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Vicki. That's fantastic. One of the things that I'm really excited about is the Optimiser report that will come out, I think, by June. Is it due? I think it's due in a couple of months' time, isn't it? Which will...
Yeah, Vicki tries not to hide under the table at the moment. Yes.
We'll give organisations, if you like, a barometer for how they're actually performing in relation to these reports. I think it will be really good because sometimes, obviously, having the information at your fingertips is good, but it's also important to see how you're faring compared to industry benchmarks. So really excited about that. I'd just like to thank you very much for your time today and for the fantastic webinar. There's so much material there that I think people will be able to revisit it and pass it on to colleagues. A reminder to everyone that the video and the copy of the slides will be made available within the next week. I'd like to thank everybody who's online for attending today and for taking the time out, as Vicki mentioned, in this short week. And also to let you know that next month's webinar will be on engaging audiences through crowdfunding. It's on Wednesday the 29th of May, and Sabrina will be sending notification of that soon so you can put it in your calendars. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think it's a wrap for today. I think we're 11:29, so bang on for time. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the day. And thank you again, Vicki.
Thank you.